Hello, everybody. Welcome into the NBA Front Office Show. It's Friday. You know what that means.
Front Office Friday! 2 months to the first full night of games edition.
Let's go. 2 months till the first full night of games. We're doing a countdown right now. I've got 42 days till Lakers basketball. I'm counting down till preseason right now because I can't wait. But 2 months till the first night of NBA games. We love it. Can't wait. More than ready for the NBA to come back. If you're joining us from YouTube, from X, we're happy to see you here. We're going to be taking your questions and comments as we go through the show. Keith, you know what? I got to say, aside from having to fight with my computer a bit today, I'm having a pretty good day, but I'm not having as good of a day as Malik Beasley is right now.
Yeah, he is. He's doing well. Before we jump in, I love it. The music always makes me want to play some classic Mega Man. That's what we call it. We call it the Mega Man music.
So the music is just in YouTube's music library. Yep. And so I was watching a video with my wife the other day. We watch a lot of travel videos. So we were watching a travel video and somebody used it as the background music. I went, hey, that's the Front Office Show. That should be allowed.
Yeah, come on now. That's a weird, it's a little too much for like a travel video.
Yeah.
Like I would need to see the people running around and getting ready to.
That's why it was so noticeable.
Who does Mega Man fight? Is it Dr. Robotnik?
Dr. Wily, I think. Is that right?
Is Dr. Robotnik? Is that?
Robotnik. Yeah, that's it.
Or no, that might be Sonic the Hedgehog. I don't know.
I think it's Dr. Wily.
Yeah, you might be right with that. And I liked that game. That game was one of the ones where too, like you got all the other Mega Man guys' powers as you beat them, which was always pretty cool.
It was I just remember that game being frustratingly hard, though not as depending on the level that you started with, though not as hard as I don't know if you remember the original Nintendo.
Yeah, I know where you're going.
The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game. Yes,
especially the swimming level.
It was so hard.
Yeah,
I would get shocked all the time trying to swim.
Yeah, forget that. They throw that one in the garbage, Nintendo.
I'll never. One time, this was like peak '80s. I made it to what was it called? Was it the Techno Dome or something like that? I made it to that end level. I made it there. I paused the game, ran next door, pounded on my neighbor's door to tell my friend he wasn't home. And that was back in the day where you couldn't text anybody.
Nope.
I couldn't screenshot anything. And I went, okay, I guess I just got to play it. And I died immediately. And so I had no proof that I actually made it that far.
One of my good friends is one of the only people I know who beat Mike Tyson Punch Out without any of the cheats. He had beat that with that. So yeah.
That's a claim to fame.
Yeah, it was big time in our neighborhood. But yeah, thanks for recognizing the Mega Man music. We appreciate it.
For sure.
Yeah, Malik Beasley.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I don't know the right way. I guess just no longer under investigation. So hopefully that removes any barriers for him to sign with a team now. I tweeted a little bit about it this morning. Pistons can pay him $7.2 million. They don't have any ability to pay him more than that. They only have his non-bird rights. They don't have any kind of exceptions or anything like that. That works out to almost $31 million over a 4-year deal. If he wanted to go that route, my guess he would probably do a 1-year deal or maybe like a 1+1. Because I don't know that he necessarily wants to lock in for $7 to $8 million a year. With that, there's only a him. There you go. Look at this guy. He's all over it. Only a handful of teams can offer him more than that. A couple people ask, why is Miami has their full non-tax, but 7.3 is what they're under the first apron, and they get hard capped. So that's how much they can use with that. So those are the teams that right now, without doing anything else, can be an offer for Beasley. There's other teams that could, if they wanted a salary dump a guy somewhere or whatever, could do something. But it's somewhat limited market, but not the worst thing in the world for him. There's some decent teams in there, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Pistons stay involved as well.
Yeah, the Pistons can get into the mix, can certainly offer him that $7-ish million, a little bit more than that. If you're Malik Beasley, I wonder what are you factoring here? Are you trying to look for a team that can contend? Are you trying to look, because I mean, I think the preference would have been to stay with Detroit. There were reports from ESPN that he was going to get a 3-year, $42 million deal from Detroit. So maybe he ultimately just stays with Detroit. What would do you just take like the most the Pistons can offer you for 1 year, but they already kind of replaced you with Duncan Robinson? They went and signed that deal. This is all a mess. So where should Malik Beasley's priorities lie at this point? And we'll talk about what this could mean for him too, because he was certainly damaged by this. He had a contract that he would have just signed had this not happened.
Yeah.
But where should his priorities lie first and foremost? Should it be getting to a contending team? Should it be just can Detroit contend? Is there a role there for him? How do you weigh the possibilities here for Malik Beasley?
And we did get a super chat about what he can do, so we will get to that too. So just hang tight on that. Immediately, I think take Brooklyn out. That's not how they're going to spend their cap space. They've already got a full roster. They don't need another guard. It's not a real great fit for him anyway. I would take the Wizards out. Even though the Wizards did get Valanciunas last year, Beasley's not as clean of a fit as Valanciunas was a year ago. So let's take them out of the mix. OKC, they'd have to cut somebody. So I'm going to take them out of the mix. Chicago doesn't really make sense. They only have one open roster spot that's presumably earmarked for Josh Giddey. Miami, Sacramento, they can't really pay much more than Detroit can. Charlotte doesn't really make sense. So, I start there. There it is. I basically eliminated the entire list of teams that could straight out sign him, minus Indiana, but Indiana's barely under the tax line and they're not going into the tax. So I really think it's going to make sense for him to go back to Detroit, unless a team that we're not seeing right now makes a move to clear cap space and go get him. But there were things that have come out, and they came out before this, that the Pistons had stayed in touch with him and stayed engaged. They didn't cut him off and treat him like, hey, completely damaged goods. It was more like, we can't sign you right now. And everybody seemed to kind of understand it and get it.
Right.
So I think we're just in a spot where he hangs out for a little bit now, and we'll see, where it lands. But if you're the Pistons, it doesn't make a ton of sense because, like you said, you went out and got Duncan Robinson. You have Jaden Ivey coming back.
Yeah.
But it doesn't not make sense either.
Player.
Why not get another productive guy?
He was 7th at the NBA in 3-point attempts per game last season. And shot at a 42, 41 and change for 42% if we want to round up. So, he's a quality player. I believe that right now. I don't think this is a hot take in terms of the actually available players. And I'm not talking about the guys that are already earmarked to go to Golden State, not talking about the restricted free agents. In terms of the players that are actually on the market, he shoots to the top of the list in terms of free agency, right? And it's a kind of an August surprise here where suddenly this guy that, it was very much up in the air. We didn't know whether or not any team was really going to be, I don't want to say able, but willing to sign him. Sure. And suddenly there's this free agent that we didn't, I don't think anybody was anticipating him being ready to go now. And that appears to be where we're at.
Yeah. And I've seen people throw out, why not a contender like the Knicks or the Lakers or the Clippers the challenge for all those teams is they can only offer them the minimum. And a couple of those teams right now can't even offer them that.
Right.
Because that would put them over their hard cap. So,
and that includes the Lakers, by the way.
Exactly.
Just the Lakers fans in here. The Lakers cannot offer him even a veteran minimum contract. They don't have, because they're hard capped at the first apron.
Yeah. Now, the Lakers could pretty easily get off a deal or two if they needed to offer Beasley a contract if that's the direction they wanted to go, but it would still be a minimum. They don't have anything more than that to credibly offer reasonably. And people have said, well, what about a sign and trade? Well, it's all the same issues. That hard caps you. There's all these problems that come with that if you wanted to go that direction. So, I wouldn't be shocked if it went where he landed with a contender we're not seeing right now. But I think given everything that has gone on, and as the question notes here, maybe missing out on a $342 million contract.
Yeah.
I don't think he's playing for the minimum if he can get more. I think he's going to try to, at least for a year, cash in. And it makes a lot of sense with Detroit even just sign even a 1 year or 1+1 at 7.2. And then when you opt out, then they've got your early bird rights. That opens up a lot more. You can get back to the kind of money you missed out on before, and you go that direction. As far as this question from the Pimpinito King, I don't know what that all is all about, but sure. Does Beasley have the grounds to take any course of action after losing out on a $342 million contract? I know the investigation wasn't conducted directly by the NBA, so not sure. I mean, I would assume him and his lawyers could look at the actual people involved with this getting out there and preventing him from signing, and could look at some damages filed that way, because very clearly this did keep him from signing a contract. But as far as like going after the NBA or NBA teams, I don't know that there's any real recourse, because this type of thing, or really anything where there's a question of, is this guy going to be able to play or not? No one's going to sign the player. Different from injury. That's a different thing. But like any kind of legal matter, teams are they're going to stay away, because they don't want to get caught up in anything like that. So I think it's, in a spot where they are really, just going to have to be, a little cautious on this.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, Keith, it's unfortunate if the accusation really was just completely false, and that was it, or whatever was, happening, whether it was a full accusation or not. But unfortunate for Malik Beasley, unfortunate for the Pistons. I mean, they went ahead and made other moves, like Beasley lost out on a contract and all of that. But I would have to imagine there's got to be some measure of relief for Malik Beasley now I can sign with a team. Now I can move forward with my career and go on from here. Certainly been a trying time for him.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think we're just in a spot with, with Malik Beasley, where now your best thing here is, obviously, if you feel like, hey, we can go after some people and try to recoup lost wages, lost potential earnings or whatever, I have no thought on like, why shouldn't you do that? But I think you want to go into a place where it is, let's try to get into a spot where it is, let's just move forward, right? What's done is done. You could take your legal action still, but as far as NBA and NBA teams go, just find the best spot for you and try to move forward as best you can.
All right, let's go here. Petition to shorten the offseason. I don't know if the players would agree to this, but I would agree to it.
Yeah, I can tell you 100% they would not.
They would not.
So, yeah. And there's all kinds of issues with that too. So,
well, so I would be like, what if we talked about just lengthening the season, but not increasing the number of games?
Yeah, that would also be a no-go from the Players Association.
Even if that meant, I'm talking about add a couple of weeks and use that as a method to eliminate back-to-backs.
Nope. They would want something,
they would rather have back-to-backs.
Major back in return for that. Yeah, players want their summers off. I
don't blame them.
And I'll also say this: where do you add those weeks? Because we saw with the bubble, it doesn't work in the summertime. People are not looking for the NBA. That should have been in theory, a ratings monster. Yeah. Because we were dying for professional sports at that point. Not probably great use of language there.
I was going to say.
But it's like we were jonesing for it. Let's put it that way.
Sure.
And and just people weren't looking for NBA games in the middle of the summertime. And I get different environment, but still people were home and just didn't happen. And then they're not going to go any earlier. They already overlap with the NFL more than they want to. And the NFL is continuing to creep further back into the NBA's world with this. And eventually I think we know the NFL's probably going to add an 18th game. And the NFL's been pretty clear they don't really want to start before Labor Day. Yeah. I don't think they have a huge issue with pushing back deeper into February. So I don't think it's gonna be a thing. Ever that. Yeah. I mean, maybe you could squeeze out another couple days. Now, what they might say is, great, shorten the preseason, which the NFL players had, some wins there with, all right, hey, if you're not adding total weeks, then just cut weeks off the preseason. And we'll see
do we really need 6-7 preseason games?
And all around, outside of baseball, which I get, pitchers have to work themselves up to pitching, more than 20 pitches at a time. Like, that takes time. It's like, I've heard multiple people and friends I have who work in baseball have been like, spring training is for pitchers. Batters would need like 2.5 weeks. Like, that's all they really need to kind of get in rhythm. But it's really for building up the arm strength in the starting pitchers and building up for relievers being able to throw 2, sometimes 3 days in a row. Basketball players, even football players, this isn't like, right, I'm sure your dad and grandfathers told you same stories about how when I was a kid, they all had jobs too, right? They played football and they sold insurance or whatever. I've heard those stories 9 million times, and they're all true. Well, now, if you're a professional basketball player, and very few guys show up to camp and it's like, well, they got to lose 20 pounds because they came in way out of shape. Guys just don't do that anymore. So I think you could get into a spot where it's like, get this out of here and, get rid of a week or two of preseason. That's how you add it. I just don't know that they would, go for just adding total weeks to the season.
This comment said basketball players need to build up their calves so they stop tearing their Achilles. I don't know if you saw Gary Vitti, the former Lakers trainer, was on Byron Scott's podcast. And like, I've heard this before, like anecdotally, but he presented a pretty good argument for like what's happening in part is we're seeing, we're talking about building up players during the offseason and stuff. It's that kids are now so specialized in their sports that what it used to be was you play basketball in the winter or whatever, then you'd be playing football, you'd be playing baseball, you'd be playing soccer. And so without intentionally doing it, you are taking stress off of certain ligaments and everything like that during those offers, and you're training your body in different ways. And so you're strengthening muscles that or areas of your body that you may not be strengthening just in, say, basketball training, because you're doing basketball training, then you're doing baseball training, you're doing football, you're doing soccer, you're doing, whatever. And so we're looking at why did players in the past not have the kind of injuries that we're seeing today. I think part of it is certainly the speed of the game. I think part of it is the quick twitch, the stop start, how much movement there is on the court. You can see it in the stats. You move a lot more in an NBA game today than you did even 10 years ago, like drastically more movement on the court. So that's part of it. But also we're seeing guys that come up their whole time just doing basketball and not getting the kind of well-rounded training that you would get if you're jumping from sport to sport.
I think a big chunk of it is overuse too. I think there's massive overuse from a very young age. We just get it very in a spot where guys start doing basketball and basketball only, soccer only, baseball only. That's what's sold to you, is that's how you get a college scholarship. That's where you need to be. Good friend of mine, his son he's wrapping up his high school days. He's going to play probably Division II, maybe low level Division I college basketball. But he was telling me they added it up last year in the calendar year, so 2024, because that was like a big gear up year for him on the AAU circuit. Between AAU and his high school team season, he played almost 200 total games.
Oh my God.
In the calendar year. Because you go to the AAU tournaments and a lot of them are 6 to 8 games in the span of a weekend over, 2, 3, 4 days, at these tournaments.
You're talking about playing more than, that's more than every other day you're playing.
Yep.
Good Lord.
And he plays in a tournament almost every single weekend outside of when the high school season is going. Then you're with your high school team, but that's comparatively, that's not all that long. But he was just going through. It's just unbelievable how much they're these guys are playing. And if you ever talk to an NBA trainer, NBA medical staff, they'll tell you get a guy the first time you get a look at their medicals. A lot of these guys look as, when they come in, they look like they're already in their 30s when they're 19, 20, 21 for the way their ligaments and tendons look because they've already put that much damage on them. So we could spend I could literally spend hours on this, and there's all these other things about how like just to I'll detour very brief. It's August, whatever, right? The people in Europe think the way we do soccer in this country is insane because they're like, you play as much as you train.
Right.
And they're like, that's crazy. You should be training 3, 4, 5 times as much as you play. And it's just not how we do it. It's just how it has been sold in the United States of you better pick a sport, pick it young, try to get as good as you can, put a whole bunch of time and effort into that sport, and maybe that'll pay off with a college scholarship. And that's what people are chasing. And it's just tough.
And it's if you're not, because if you don't do that, that kid over there is. And so that kid's going to be getting better at that sport than you are. You'd better stick with this one sport and specialize in it. And I think it does create some problems.
Yeah, without a doubt. We'll pull this up. Yeah. I've never heard anybody credible say it has anything to do with them not being high tops.
Yeah.
Like and it's, guys played in low tops for years. This is not a new thing. Look at guys played in the Chuck Taylor Converse, which literally have no support and they're completely flat. There's no arch to the shoe at all. And it's just, I don't think it's got anything to do with the shoes they're playing in.
Is it the shoes?
It's got to be the shoes.
It's got to be the shoes. Remember the NBA Jam? God, that was I know that's another video game reference here, but all right, let's go here. Implications on the draft if expansion teams are added.
Yep. We can. So whenever we discuss anything with expansion, we can only go off what's been done in the past.
Exactly.
And here's exactly what the CBA says about expansion for like the last, I think we're into 4 or maybe 5 CBAs now. It's see previous CBA. Like that's literally all it says. And
we've got this big CBA right there. It's just so in depth, right? It is so verbose. And then it's like the equivalent of when your neighbor has like this insane Christmas light display, and then the person next door just puts like ditto with an error, an arrow. I mean, that's the explanation on expansion. But in the past, it's been that the expansion teams for a certain amount of time are not eligible for like X picks in the draft. Right?
Yeah. So what they've done is they've done things like for the first 2-3 years, you cannot have higher than X pick, and it's whatever is negotiated and agreed upon. And what the big reason why they've kind of done that is for the early CBAs, it was we're not expanding, so we don't even need it's just let's check that off the list. We can just say see previous CBA because there's no discussion. I think in the last couple, it's been an understanding of if expansion happens and we are in the middle of a CBA, we're just going to sit down and completely discuss it. And we'll almost I'm not going to say start fresh, but it's going to be, let's really look at what works for us now, what doesn't work for us now. Some of the things as far as this stuff too they're covered under what's actually called the operations manual versus the CBA itself. But what we do know is they would add, because we're going to assume 2 teams, they would add 2 picks to the first round, 2 picks to the second round. It is in the operations manual that like today, if it says like is top, 55 protected, everything would adjust accordingly as picks are added. So like that might adjust like top 57 protected or whatever. If you said, it's you're not going to have a team. Well, that the 31st pick is now a first round pick. So they actually lose that pick. That's not that wouldn't be a thing. Everything would adjust accordingly. Then, and then they'd do the draft how they've generally done it when there's been multiple teams, like when it was Toronto and Vancouver. They held a coin flip, and I apologize, I don't remember off the top of my head. Whoever won the coin flip, they got the choice. Do you want the higher pick in the NBA draft or in the expansion draft? Yeah. And they took it in the NBA draft. because that was seen as the expansion draft. You're not necessarily looking for franchise type guys in an expansion draft. But there'll be a lot of rules, I think, that'll be looked at and adjusted and changed, and it'll be really fun to track it when it all comes together.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that people are very interested in. We found since we've been doing this that people are very interested in how could conferences be realigned? What would who would be protected in an expansion draft? And so we will cover the hell out of this if and when expansion is coming.
Yes,
it is a lot. I mean, we can go team by team, and I believe they protected eight in the past. Who were the 8 that would get protected?
100%.
Who would be unprotected? Strategically, could they leave this person? And what I love, Keith, is the idea that teams could say, hey, we're going to leave this guy unprotected. If you pick him, we're going to give you a little something extra here. We're going to incentivize you to take this contract off of our books.
Or we had to leave a good player unprotected. Mm-hmm. We're going to give you a pick to take this not so good player off our books.
Yeah.
That happens in expansion drafts too. Some teams are, a little more loaded than others are. So if anybody's really interested, I did on Yossi Goslin's podcast. We did a mock expansion draft and we had a lot of fun with it. And we, just went back and forth. I committed podultery and jumped on with Yossi. So,
I am hurt.
So, yeah,
I just that's it. I'm out. I guess that's my heart is broken, Keith. My heart is broken.
We'll get past it, I think.
Somehow, somewhere.
We'll see.
All right, to therapy we go. Let's see. What do the Lakers need to do to get Malik Beasley? Well, I mean, he would have to either be willing to sign for a veteran minimum, and even then they would have to shed salary in order to do it, or they'd have to execute a sign and trade that would involve salary going out to the Pistons. Those would be essentially the two paths to make, and neither one is likely, by the way, but those.
I would say if you're already having to do a trade to get rid of salary, you would rather just rope it all into one thing because you're already hard capped at the first apron as the Lakers. So there's no further penalty for acquiring a player by a sign and trade. So I think you'd rope it all into one big transaction where it's let's make it work. But I don't know that that's the best fit for him either. It is kind of a crowded backcourt. Like there's just a lot of guys who need minutes in that backcourt. And I'm not sure if I'm him, like that's necessarily where I want to go. But I mean, definitely could. I wouldn't rule it out fully if there was the right, kind of thing came together. Sure. I mean, why not? And if you're a team, that's like, all right, we'll eat Maxi Kleber's deal, but we're going to get Dalton Connect out of this too. Maybe you jump in and kind of, get Connect in a draft pick to help facilitate. Sure. Why not?
I do wonder, from the Lakers perspective, if you're like Malik Beasley's a fine player, but I mean, from Beasley's perspective, the Lakers had him. They didn't pick up his option. Does he really want to go back to LA? I think that's a fair question. Mm-hmm. But then for the Lakers side, let's say you would have to give Malik Beasley 3-year deal if you're going to sign it. If you're going to do this,
and here's the other important thing.
They want to tie that up.
The Pistons can't in a sign and trade give him more than $7.2 million as starting because they'd be signing and trading him using his non-bird rights. So they can't he's not
like you can give him $10 million or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, even if the Lakers found a trade workable to start him at the $14 million, let's say he lost, in theory, doesn't matter. The Pistons can't do that. Because they can't sign him for more than 7.2 in a sign and trade because they only have his non-bird rights.
Yeah.
So it's just tough.
All right, let's go here. Can you explain why Keon Ellis is extension eligible now and not February 9th? Pretty sure it's 2 years from signing his standard contract, but saw you say otherwise.
I'd have to look at the dates. I don't know off the top of my head. We can go to another one while I do a little bit of quick research on that.
Here, I can do. Let's go here. Can the Lakers do Gabe plus a second for Highsmith, and would Brooklyn do it? So could Brooklyn flip Haywood Highsmith at the say sometime before the trade deadline and get a second round pick out of it potentially.
It's going to take more than that though.
Yeah. What, a second round pick?
No, more than Gabe, because they'd be taking on more money.
You're taking on money. Yeah, I'm
for a player they have absolutely no use for because they have 100 point guards already.
Right. They would. You're taking on extra money there. Gabe Vincent's at $11.5 million. Highsmith's only had about 5.6 off the top of my head. So you're taking on significant salary there. And you're basically doubling your salary. And just for a second round pick may not be enough unless they feel like they could then flip Gabe Vincent and turn him into something else. But I do think Haywood Highsmith, his skill set is going to be more in demand around the NBA than, say, a Gabe Vincent and at half the money. So, yeah, it'll probably take more than a second round pick to do it, although they did absorb Highsmith's contract for just 1 second, but still. Could the Lakers, in theory? Sure. In theory, they could, but I don't think Brooklyn would do that. If I'm Brooklyn, I'm hanging on to Highsmith, letting him get healthy, and then somewhere around the trade deadline, I'm looking to see if there's anybody that really needs a wing and see if I can extract some type of more significant asset for him, if I can.
Yep. Yeah, 100% with that. With Keon Ellis, I don't remember saying it was right now, and if I did, I probably misspoke, but I do think it is I think it's February 9th. So
okay.
I'll do more research on it and try to figure it out for sure. And if I remember, I'll correct.
And Kings don't trade Keon Ellis. I'm not expecting them to. But do not trade Keon Ellis. You know what? Let's talk about that real quick, Keith, with the Kings, because there's a lot of the Kings are being the Kangs again with their reported desire to trade Malik Monk and then sign Russell Westbrook. And a lot of why would you trade Malik Monk in order to sign Russell Westbrook? I think in that, though, I would rather have Malik Monk than Russell Westbrook, to be clear. I'd rather have the younger player than Russ. But if we're talking about, we're not comparing apples to apples, really, because we're talking about Malik Monk with 3 years under contract, including a player option of the last year, and turning him into what I would assume would be a veteran minimum Russell Westbrook, probably 1 year deal. So there's a salary component to this that I think people are missing. Now, you can still argue, well, the Kings shouldn't make that swap or should or whatever, but it's not. There's a lot of that initial shock just reacting to the headline and kind of clowning on the Kings. And I don't think that's offering really a truly well-rounded look at what that process would actually be. And plus, could you turn Malik Monk into something? Now, obviously, the fact that he's still a King right now probably says no. I mean, we'll see what they could ultimately find. But what if you could turn Malik Monk into something and still get Russell Westbrook, right? It's not as simple as, the Kings want to get rid of Malik Monk so they can sign Russell Westbrook. How dumb are they? Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, you are not doing that just to get Westbrook. Like, you would do that with the idea of that fills another roster hole, ideally a forward-sized player. And then how we get that player, and how we replaced in the backcourt is by signing Westbrook. Yeah. No one's moving anybody just to be able to sign Russ. Because also the Kings could just do it. They don't have to move anybody. They've got the ability to just give them a minimum contract right now.
But aren't they full on roster spots?
They might be, but so you waive Drew Eubanks or Doug McDermott. Like, you're not having to clear out a guy to give Russ a spot, right, or waive Terrence Davis, who's non-guaranteed.
Sure.
Right. And there it is. You could just do that if you wanted to. So I tend to think it's more of a, hey, we're interested if there's room later, like we'll do this. But for now, I think it's going to be, now I would argue, I still wouldn't even do it if I was the Kings. Even if you took Monk or Ellis out of the mix, you still have Schroeder, whichever guy you keep, plus Devin Carter, and you have Sabonis, Levine, and DeRozan, who are all best with the ball in their hands. So I don't necessarily see the need for Westbrook.
I don't either. But then I think about this, like, where is the need for him? And I don't think he was particularly bad for the Denver Nuggets last year. But I'm starting to really wonder, like, is he on an NBA roster to start the season?
Yeah, I mean, interestingly enough, one of the places where I think he could still fit is back in Denver.
Yeah.
They did not sign a point, even with all the things they did. They didn't bring in a backup point guard. That seems like that spot's going to go to Jalen Pickett this year, and they're going to give him first crack at it and then figure it out if they need to as the season goes along. But yeah, there's not a lot of places as you look around that are like, yeah, there it is. There's the fit on a minimum deal for Russ. So I don't hate the idea of the Kings doing this. There just isn't a spot that screams out like, yep, there's the team. That's the team that needs him. And what that could mean is he may be best then. I mean, we know he's going to stay in shape. He's always in really good shape. Let it play out a little bit then. See if a team suffers an injury where you can go and jump in and help. I mean, somebody always unfortunately goes down somewhere, and then jump in there and help that team out and maybe get more playing time and the like.
Yeah, that may be ultimately where this goes. All right, let's go here. Should the Spurs extend Jeremy Sohan or trade him?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, really, the answer always with everything comes down to what's the cost.
Yep.
Right. If it's mid-level-ish, I'd probably get it done. If it starts to go much beyond that, I'd probably think about letting him go, because the question you have to start asking if you're the Spurs is, where are we fitting all these guys in around Wembanyama? Because just Wembanyama clearly is your guy, right? That's your franchise player. Now you have Fox and Vassell on long-term contracts. You have Castle and Harper on their rookie scale deals. All right, they can't all play together. A lot of those guys are true guards. So, how are we going to start fitting guys in? So in part, you'd be like, all right, well, Sohan can stay. But if, let's say Sohan's like, I need 20 million, 25 million to sign an extension, all of a sudden it's like, man, now we're locking up a lot of money into guys.
Yeah.
And would I rather have a little bit more flexibility moving forward? And I know they're super high on Carter Bryant, who I think was a really good pick by them. And I think Carter Bryant defensively is ready right now to play. Offensively,
he showed some things in summer league.
Yeah, offensively, he's got some work to do for sure. But I think he can be really in a spot where he can be helpful. And that's where then you got to start to question with this, because the other thing with Sohan, as fun of a player as he is, he's just not very good off the ball. And now you've got a lot of on-ball guys now, or guys who need the ball a lot. So it just starts to get to be a little bit messy. Again, if it's mid-level or under, yeah, get it done and keep him in the fold and figure it out long-term. Right. But if it gets much more than that, I probably delay it and let the restricted market play out.
Yeah. And I mean, we've seen the way the restricted market has played out for, the Fantastic Four this year with Kuminga and Giddey and all those guys. So if you're a team, you're looking at the restricted market and saying, man, I mean, maybe it's not a fun spot to be in, but we're not at risk of losing him for nothing, right? I mean, he'll be restricted. Pretty good chance that's not going to play out in a favorable way for him, for the player. And so it's not like this is we have to extend him right now or we lose him for nothing. That's not the way this is likely to go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You just got to be, if you're San Antonio now, you're in a spot where you need to start being careful. You can't just pay everybody. Like you have to start making real decisions, because otherwise all of a sudden what you're going to do is you're going to be like, man, we can't maximize the roster around Wembanyama because we paid everybody else. And you only have 2 more years of him on the rookie scale deal.
Yeah. If you limit your flexibility moving forward, you can very quickly create a ceiling for yourself as a team, right? Yep. You lock into all these contracts, and especially in today's NBA with the collective bargaining agreement that we've got, if you wind up signing what becomes seen as a bad contract, you lock into a player, maybe give them a little bit more than you should, it can be very punitive and very difficult to move off of that contract. So teams have got to be careful. And I think, Keith, we are seeing, we've seen teams kind of adjust to the new environment of this collective bargaining agreement. I think we're seeing teams really adjust and start to become a lot more cautious with the deals that they're giving out. We're seeing, look at the Duncan Robinson contract with the Detroit Pistons, where you've got, the non-guaranteed money. We're starting to see a lot more deals that are structured like that. Now, part of that might be this off season where there wasn't a lot of top end talent out there. There's not a lot of money to spend, the market environment being what it was, but still we're seeing teams that are being much more cautious and careful with their future planning. And I think that will include what the Spurs do here with Jeremy Sohan.
I even look at the 4 big restricted guys still out there. Like, they haven't moved because the teams are not just, all right, they're our guy, pay him whatever. Like, that kind of for a while was a little bit of the thought process was, all right, if they're anywhere close to a 25% of the cap max, yeah, if we can get a little off the top, like the Desmond Bane one, when he signed it with Memphis, all right, we'll go slightly less than the max. Then do it. But other than that, like, let's not mess around. Let's keep our guy. Yeah, we've seen teams dig their heels in a little bit and be like, hold on. I don't know that I want to be fully locked in on all these deals.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Let's go here. Can the Lakers sign Austin Reeves to a 4-year, $120 million contract, but have a second year be significantly lower, like a 30, 20, 33, 37? Would any rules stop that?
Yeah, you can't. You can. It just can't be like this structure. It would be limited to going up or down by 8%.
Right.
Each year. So stay. You flipped over. I was gonna have you stay on the Spurs page, just because it's a kind of a good example almost of how you can do this. Devin Vassell.
Yeah, right there.
It's not the exact structure he's laying out, and I get why he is, because you're trying to maximize cap space in 27. But it's like, well, I guess it would be kind of the same. But yeah, but you can see it's 27, 27, then it dips, then it goes back up. That's what it would look like.
Yeah.
Something in that range, because you're talking almost the same kind of money.
Right.
So
yep.
Down by 8% or up by 8%.
All right, let's go here. Honest opinion, as a sports fan, would you rather watch NBA games on cable or have to go to a different streaming service? With the upcoming season, fans have to go to NBC, ABC, Prime, and Peacock to watch. Keith, I think this is the wrong question. I think the real question for the NBA, from the NBA's perspective, is not would you rather, it's will they? Will they go to different streaming services or not? It may not be what the fans want to do, but will they? Because it is certainly a lucrative model that they're going to here, and that's the reason for it. They're being paid for doing this. So will fans go to these different portals essentially in order to watch the games? And I think that the belief from the NBA is yes. Now, from a fan perspective, I've talked about this forever. I want a utopia of basketball where it's all just in one place and I can see all the games and I don't have to mess around with any kind of blackouts or anything like that. And if I have to pay for that, I will pay for that, but I want it all in one spot. I don't want to have to jump around to all these different places, but will I? Yes, I will. Now, I am in the whatever, percentage of diehard fans. Obviously, I do this for a living. So I'm a different category than like, will the casual fan do that? But that is something that the NBA clearly believes they will do.
Yeah, I mean, I'll answer JJ's question. Yeah, I'd rather have be as easy as possible. We clearly know games that are on NBC, ABC, ESPN, those will not be on League Pass. That's no different than it was previous with TNT and ESPN as the partners. The question is, if you are a League Pass customer, games that are on Prime and Peacock only, they're not like supplement, like the Peacock. Some of the games are on NBC and Peacock, which is all right. If you just stream, you get it. But if it is an exclusive to that, I don't think they're going to show up on your League Pass channels or your League Pass app or whatever. I think it's going to be exclusive to that. Like, for example, it drives me. Well, it did, and now it's changed. I think people know this now. I have DirecTV, and I have the MLB Extra Innings package. Well, one day a week, the Yankees play on Apple TV, which I have Apple TV, but it's just a pain because then it's like I got to launch it and all that. Well, this year, and it was not this way last year, as far as I know, those games are part of the Extra Innings package too. Like I can just load them up like I do normally.
That's ideal.
And get them. So one thing that has been confirmed to me, if you're in a local market and it's not a local market like Denver, which was dealing with local TV issues forever and a day, but if it's available, like, and you can just get it locally, you will get it locally. Like you're not going to have to then fire up an app to go find it or whatever. So I just think it's going to be, it's just going to be new, right? Like we're just going to have to kind of adjust to this and figure it out. But yeah, I'm not super psyched to on a league pass night have to then also have a streaming app open as well. And I've already said I'm on a second screen those games, and then I'll flip around league pass on the TV like I normally do.
That's the thing. It's the people that are jumping from game to game where it's tough because then you're closing out an app, opening up a different one, right? And that was the nice thing with when we were under the cable model and you were just watching all these out of market games on League Pass. It's very easy just to flip channels, right? But if you're flipping apps, that's a more difficult experience. So, that said,
we'll see.
I am curious because it is a lot. But I also know, like in the NFL season, it didn't take long for me to get into the habit of, oh, it's Thursday. Okay. It's on Amazon Prime,
but it's only one game, right?
But it's only one game. And that's what I'm wondering. That's what I'm saying. I don't know. Is that going to carry over here to the NBA? Because now we're looking at each day of the week is, a different service. And I wonder if that will become habit as we saw with the NFL, or if it is too intricate, too complicated for that to happen. It'll be interesting to see how this all plays out.
Yeah. I all I'll say is we all collectively need to have patience and figure this out. There's part of me that is still like, I still think it's absolutely amazing that as someone who watches every Celtics game, that I can watch them in Orlando, Florida. Like, because when I was a kid, for most of my life, you got whatever was on, plus your local team, and that was it. And then my dad is like, we're kind of bringing up the old folks here in this episode a couple times, but it was like you just got whatever was on, right? Like not even every Celtics game was on TV when he was a kid. Like, just didn't work out that way. So yeah, it's just kind of interesting. Yeah, with that, a couple more questions because they're kind of in line. Thoughts on WWE moving pay-per-views to ESPN? I didn't even know this was a thing, but sure, I guess. I know they lost UFC, so my guess is they paid a bunch of money, and
they're not even pay-per-views anymore. They're called PLEs, premium live events, I think.
Okay.
Anyway, so now it's on ESPN. I saw something about it, but to be honest, I didn't dig far enough into it to know. All I know is like I got to watch SummerSlam just on. I think it was on, what was it on? Peacock? Something like that. Anyway, and I hadn't watched WWE in years. I remember the pay-per-view model from 20 years ago where you had to go and you had to buy it. It was $45 or whatever to buy WrestleMania and stuff like that. I was a kid,
loved it. There were only like 4 each year. There were WrestleMania, Royal Rumble, SummerSlam, and Survivor Series.
Yeah.
That was it. And then it started like, all right, we're going to add a couple more as like one every other month. And then it was like, all right, now there's 2 per month.
And now it's
and I don't watch wrestling anymore. Like I just, hey, people like what they like. I'm not ripping on people who are super into wrestling. Like, hey, if that's what you like, good for you. Like, I have no issue with that. I mean, I like the Marvel movies, so what
I've watched a little bit recently. I showed it to my daughter and she got really into it, into the WWE stuff. I haven't watched the last couple of weeks. I'm way behind because I've been watching I've frankly been getting ready for fantasy football drafts, but I was actually pretty impressed with the product now compared to what I remember it being like 20 plus years ago. The production value is through the roof. And I know there's other, there's AEW and stuff, and they do some of the stuff these guys are pulling off, though, compared to what I was used to watching like 20 years ago. I'm like, oh my God, they're doing.
Yeah, I don't things. Like, there's like, if I can imagine how the conversation would go in my house if I was like, hey, I have another thing I want to get really into and watch all the time and also spend money on. I'd be like, the cool thing is we'd be doing the show together in the same studio because I'd be living in your guest room at that point, because I'd be divorced and kicked out of the house. So it's there's times when it's usually around this time of year when I'm like, I kind of need a hobby. And both my wife and daughter are like, you don't need another hobby. Like, do things with the things you already, enjoy. Like just, do that. But yeah, it's just, I felt a lot, but I mean, I loved wrestling for a long time. Quick WWF story. My uncles were part of the Northeast Ring Crew. For a number of years. They worked with WWF back in the day. My uncle's road roommate was Jimmy Mouth of the South Heart, was his roommate on the road.
That's cool.
So when they came into the Northeast and they traveled all over the Northeast, they would go from city to city and set up the ring in each place, and they paired him up, and so there you go. There's a little story.
You guys, I have had a couple of different wrestlers that have come on Lakers Nation before. Scorpio Sky comes on. In fact, I was just talking to Sky the other day. Chris Masters has come on quite a bit. We still use the Master Lock of the Night from Chris when we're doing our post game shows. So I've known. Well, I'll tell you what, Keith. I was doing a youth basketball clip. I'm talking about like 5-year-olds, right? Really, like young kids. I was doing way back in Southern California, like 20 years ago for the YMCA. I was doing a youth basketball thing, and in walks Chavo Guerrero, bringing his kid in to this youth basketball thing. And I was like big into wrestling at the time. And so was my buddy who was running the class with me. We about lost our minds and had such a hard time running that class because we're like, that's Chavo. And we actually got him to come and like help out with the class a little bit and stuff. It was really cool.
Peak August show happening.
August show.
Last thing on TV. Do you know why regional sports networks perform so poorly? I think the reality is they were, as people, even if they didn't cut the cord, they started cutting like sports packages out and those kind of things. And the reality is people are just not consuming sports like that the way they used to anymore. I can't tell you how many people that I know that still call themselves like a diehard fan of whatever team, but they're like, I don't watch all 82 games anymore. And that comes and goes, right? As you get older, maybe you have kids, maybe your work changes. You may not have the time to check in the way you used to and make it appointment viewing for all 82 games. And I used to be one of those people like, well, then don't say you're a diehard fan if you're not there for every game. And then as I also got older, my own life changed. It became, all right, I get it. Like sometimes you can't be in front of a TV, like other things sometimes take precedent, and it is what it is with that. But I think that's a big part of why. And quite often, I don't think it was very good, like good product with this. So,
all right, let's go. Keith, sorry for calling you Kevin last time.
I think we decided whenever someone actually calls me Kevin will be the Crypto Bros name.
That's right.
So Crypto Bro will get in there about the grind mindset.
Does Palika call you for advice? Only on the skits I was doing like a while back.
Can I ask you? I can ask you a question because somebody put this in the comments on one of our recent shows, and you'll know better than me if this is actually true. Did Rob Pelinka really say Austin Reeves is better than Larry Bird ever was?
No.
Okay. I had to assume that was not true. Because I would tell, let's do a whole new skit where we're confining him to a mental institution.
Yeah, no,
because that's bonkers.
No, I think somebody was trolling there.
Yeah, it might have been. Yeah, it is somebody who's in there regularly, so there was a little like, is that real or not? But yeah. Leads are sorry.
Sorry, I was going to crypto bro.
Crypto bro, but the other one's a good one too. Oops. Oh man, see now we're both clicking. Probably not. But I'll be what time is it on Saturday? That game is at, I hope I'm home. Yeah, 12:30. I should be home and able to watch. So we're into our own soccer season over here, so there's going to be a lot of mornings and early afternoons spent out at the soccer fields for us for the next several months. So yeah, man, I love the Premier League. I loved having it back last weekend. Like I watched so much soccer last weekend. It was and it's just perfect because when I'm up in the morning and I'm just doing my morning stuff, it's great to just have a game to throw on and watch. So
see, that's the problem. You wake up in the morning. That's my problem.
True. Yeah. No, I'm still up and at it early. I'm already like starting to prepare for like, all right, now that the schedule's out, like I'm mapping out like, all right, how do I want to plan out the various weeks and all that. So yeah.
Way to do it. All right. Well, everybody,
that's it, man.
Yeah, we appreciate you joining the show. Thanks for coming in. Obviously, what is it? August 22nd now. Getting closer to September means getting closer to training camps and all that. But we appreciate everybody for joining today.
Reeves could pass Larry Bird in career 3-pointers next season. Yeah, not surprised at all.
Yeah,
like
the 3-point volume has gone way up.
Yeah, well, just strictly. And this is nothing on six, as you guys should know by now. I am fairly high on Austin Reeves as an offensive player, but just volume wise, everybody's going to get past.
Yep, for sure. All right, everybody. Thank you all for joining. Don't forget to subscribe right here to the channel. Till next time. See ya and stay safe.